We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's what's going on in the world today. Today is primary day in Georgia. Regardless of who wins, record-setting early voting by both parties have exposed the Democratic lie about the voter security laws being about voter suppression. More Georgians went to the polls during the 2022 primary election's early voting period than ever before, according to the Secretary of State's office. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger announced over the weekend that the 3-week voting period saw voters show up in record numbers. In total, 857,401 Georgians cast their ballots ahead of Election Day. Nearly 93% of those ballots were cast in person. The remaining 7% were cast absentee. Georgians demonstrated their confidence in the state's election integrity and ease of voting by showing up in record numbers during 3 weeks of early voting of the 2022 primary. Short lines, smooth, easy ballot access, and confidence in ballot security brought these voters out. Compared to early voting turnout in recent primaries, this represented a 168% increase over the 2018 election, the last gubernatorial primary, and a 212% jump above 2020, the last presidential primary year. The record early voting turnout is a testament to the security of the voting system and the hard work of our county election officials, said the Secretary of State. The incredible turnout we have seen demonstrates once and for all that Georgia's Election Integrity Act struck a good balance between the guardrails of access and security. The Election Integrity Act of 2021 was passed out of the legislature on a party line vote and makes a number of controversial changes to how elections are run in the state, but also many adjustments welcomed by local election officials who were overwhelmed by record turnout and an unprecedented shift towards mail-in voting because of the coronavirus pandemic. The Georgia law was touted by the left as a way to keep people from voting, leading companies to boycott the state and Major League Baseball to move the All-Star game to Colorado, which actually has stricter voting laws than Georgia does. Biden called the laws Jim Crow 2.0, a characterization which was given 4 Pinocchios by the Washington Post. Despite being called out by the Post as a lie, Democrats have clung to the lie and repeated it over and over. Today's election stands in sharp contrast to the Democratic narrative. The Georgia voting law was only one part of the Democrats' disinformation campaign, while they tried to convince others of the threat of disinformation. Democrats invented the threat of disinformation to cope with the psychological pain of their 2016 defeat by Donald Trump, says a liberal New York Magazine writer. Disinformation was the liberal establishment's traumatic reaction to the psychic wound of 2016, Sam Adler-Bell wrote in New York Magazine's Intelligencer column. But that disinformation diagnosis is also a problem for Democrats because it prevents them from recognizing how their political views are seen by ordinary Americans, he wrote on May 20th. He continued, One problem with liberals' fixation on disinformation is that it allows them to lie to themselves about public support for their policies. Disinformation provided an answer that evaded them. Disinformation provided them with an answer that allowed them to evade the question altogether. No, the problem wasn't them. The problem was that large swaths of the country had been duped, brainwashed by nefarious forces, both foreign and domestic. And if only the best minds, the most credentialed experts could be given new authority to regulate the flow of fake news, the scales would fall from the eyes of the people, and they would re-embrace the old order they had been tricked into despising. This fantasy turned a political problem into a scientific one. The Democrats refuse to accept that they have moved too far to the left and the country is leaving them behind. By convincing themselves that disinformation was the problem and the country had been tricked, they didn't have to come up with a solution to their own political problems. As more and more of the Democrats' disinformation is being disproven, from the Steele dossier to the Georgia voting law, Joe Biden, Major League Baseball, Coca-Cola, and others who pushed these lies need to apologize to the people of Georgia and to the American people. That's the raw naked truth. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll see you next time.